So I'm in a very awkward position because I've been a doctor all my life and done all my work in the privacy of a consulting room with nobody watching me apart from the patient. This is a totally new experience. But when Abby asked, would I be prepared to do it? I couldn't say no, because if you've met Abby, she is so lovely and so persuasive. I, of course, said yes. So here I am, and I've had the benefit of a chat with Kay already. We talked about a month or so ago, and I learned a bit about his story. So this evening, I'm going to explore with him a bit more of the story to see where we go, because it's completely experimental. This is a new experience for me, and I think it is for Kay. He's incredibly brave to do it.
Or silly, but you know.
He doesn't know exactly how it's going to go or what I'm going to ask. And I have a tendency, I'm known in my GP life as somebody who does ask a lot of questions and wants to get to the bottom of the problem. Not everybody with a headache wants to give all that information as to what's behind their headache or behind their terrible tummy upset. And I've got this habit of wanting to go a little bit deeper. But extraordinarily, Kay said he's also interested in psychology and the importance of the subconscious. I'm not an expert on the subconscious, but I have had therapy myself, so I've had to answer a lot of questions myself and go through some of these sort of processes, so I'm familiar with them. What I have learned is most of us, whether we know it or not, make a huge number of decisions in our life based on subconscious powers that, because they're subconscious, we don't really recognize. We don't recognize the influence that the subconscious has and the importance of, for example, creativity and what its drivers are. And that I think is a little bit what we might try and talk about tonight, if that is what some of you are here for. I don't know, I'm not going to ask you all what you're here for, but that's where I'm coming from, because I think I've met Kay, but I don't really know him, but I know a little bit of his story. And I think it'd be quite interesting because there's some features here which are newish to me, because I've looked after quite a lot of artists in my professional life. Every single one was different with their own stories. Some of them quite significant trauma. There was one amazing painter I looked after who was Jewish and came, escaped from Germany before the rise of Hitler. He was a complete workaholic and, very bright guy, but you knew the trauma in his life had fueled this frenetic activity that he was very good at. So I've had experience of this, and I'm going to ask Kay a little bit about his story and see what comes up if you're open to my questioning. And if you don't want to answer it, you just say that's a difficult question. I know that I can do it.
Okay.
What Kay told me is that he was born in Zambia to Zambian, so African parents, but came as a very small child to this country and have been here.
Yes, I came 6 months old, so
6 months old.
Yeah,
so no real experience of
Zambian
life. So what you said to me also, which really interested me, because it was exactly the same with my father when one of my siblings wanted to do art, is that there wasn't a huge amount of encouragement with creativity from
yeah, the opposite of encouragement, if anything.
the opposite.
100%.
Tell us what sort of
Discouragement, I think, is the word.
discouragement.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, again, my parents are like first generation immigrants. So if they're coming here for, what is a better life in that regard. My mum was in boarding school when I was concocted in that situation. And then she had to drop out. But it's gonna be a few tangents because I've learned stuff in the last few years. So like my dad, who I grew up with, isn't my biological dad. So my biological dad is obviously the person that was with my mum in boarding school. But I've always known my dad as my dad until I was 30. So, but anyway, so that guy David, he was in Russia, and then he got a scholarship to go to Russia for uni. So he met my mum here, but I think they'd already known each other in Zambia just by locality or whatever. So when he came here, and then they met like I think within months of her arriving and him arriving, and then bish bash bosh, like he's my dad. But yeah, so he's left Russia, and he was doing medicine even though he's a mathematician. And then my mum's come as again like quite young, dropping out of school. So she worked at she worked with like some nuns, I think it was, or some Christian stuff when I was really young. So when you get to an age where you go, oh, I want to be this, I want to be that. When I was really young, I wanted to be an architect. And then when I was 9, I found out 7 years in uni, I was like, yeah, it's not happening. Because at 9, you're like, university that's more school. So I was like, nah. But then I was like, I was like an artist. Didn't even know what that was. I just, saw paintings. I was like, I think I can do that. And they were like, yeah, that's a hobby, that kind of thing. So that was the major discouragement, basically from, I think we first said it when I was like 10 or 11, maybe before, probably until I was on like the Piccadilly screen in 2021. Yeah.
So the messages from both parents were that kind of art,
Yeah.
or even architecture wasn't.
No, I think because architecture when I was really small and I used to draw buildings and just draw everything. But then it was like an artist. It was like, again, when I think I was like 9, I was like, oh, an artist. My mum did, like, she encouraged it a bit more than my dad. So she did sign me up for these, what do you call it? These like after school classes that were in Blackheath Village. And I went to 2, but I was the youngest person in the class. So when I was about to go to my 3rd class, I was like, she's like, how is it? I was like, I don't really like it. She said, why not? I was like, I'm the youngest person there. And I think I was 8 or 9. The next person was 17. And no offense, but there was someone with grey hair in the class. I was like, Mum, there's grey haired people in the class. I don't want to do this. So that's the end of that. Yeah. So yeah, she wasn't like fully adverse. I think she just wanted, at least so it's there. Also because I was gifted and talented in primary school. So I think she was trying to just, trying to figure out herself in that way.
So you were seen as a bright kid with artistic leanings, and you had to navigate your parents' ideas of your future and your own inner,
I suppose so, yeah.
Kind of drivers, if you like.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with that when you had to do O levels? Did you do A levels? Did you do?
I did A levels.
School.
In secondary school, I all pretty good grades actually. I was like A's and B's and stuff. But then at that point, I think I told you my parents had split up when I was 10, and so I was like more and more. I got really apathetic and really cold, which I didn't know. I just thought I was a teenager. Obviously, it's only when I got to my 20s, I was like, oh, there was a shift. But I was like, what? I was like, okay, I don't really know what art is, so I'm going to do illustration. It sounds like it was less scary than artists, because artists is just like people in the National Gallery, a lot of dead people with like drawings and paintings of other dead people. I was like, I wasn't introduced to modern art, so that wasn't in my vocabulary. So I was like an illustrator. I draw, they draw, bosh. But then again, throughout those teenage years, I was like less and less inclined to listen to my parents. And again, I think I told you I was in like a gang and stuff, so it's like quite rebellious, quietly rebellious, I suppose. And so when I got to college, I did business, I did fine art and graphics, because I was like, that seems like a thing. But then more kind of family stuff, because a lot of stuff was happening, and I dropped out. And I was like, I didn't want to do business really, because I was also doing an accounting kind of course for my dad, because he was like, do this for me, because this art stuff is crazy. You end up in Liverpool, in Leicester Square, drawing caricatures. So I was like, all right, cool, I'll do this accounting course for you. But then I dropped out of that and dropped out of college first year. And then second year, I went back and just did art. And then kind of again, the same thing. I was like, I think I was just tired of, I guess, everything and everyone. So I dropped out again. But my teacher, Marilyn Pope, she was like, you've done really well both years, like, because I got through half the year each time. So she just gave me an award instead of like an A or whatever grade you're supposed to get. So she was like, have that. You never know what you're going to do if you want to come back to try this. So yeah, so then that's what happened. I dropped out twice. And then I just went to Zambia afterwards and stayed with my grandma and kind of ran away, I suppose. Yeah.
Ran away from mum and dad?
Yeah, just everyone as well. I think just
Everyone.
London. Again, like the gang kind of stuff and just friends. I think it's more and more becoming more and more like disassociated from everyone and just kind of, I guess, just colder in a way. And yeah, I wasn't feeling any of it.
No, well, you mentioned that, and I'm glad you brought it up again, because it sounds as though your parents parting company, but also trying to control your life.
Yeah.
It was a double whammy. You know, they haven't got their life sorted out themselves very well.
Yeah, because they were still trying to fight over us, which I understand now. I chose to live with my dad at the time. So my mum, they're both kind of still fighting and sort of like court stuff and people coming to the house and like, are you okay? Are you safe? And it's like, yeah, it's just me and my younger brother. So, I think it was all of that, I suppose.
Tough.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Tough, but you don't know different, do you?
Yeah.
You
Just
deal with it.
Yeah, you're just there. Yeah.
There was one thing you mentioned as well that struck me really forcibly. Was one of your best mates was in a gang.
Oh yeah, the one I fell out with.
And then you fell out with him.
Yeah, so I think that was like the proper thing that like, because that was when I was 15, just when we were doing GCSEs. And I think because, it's weird because when you say the word gang, it seems very like intense, but it's just like people in your area you're just friends with. And then again, luckily I told you, I was like, I never had to do anything kind of unforgivable. It was just maybe hold and sell drugs and this kind of stuff, which now you're like, wow, you're 14 or 13, you get some money. And then I also started like selling and buying trainers. So I'd like travel to Wembley and I knew a guy with a van and so, do all this kind of stuff because you just think that's what you do, especially with my mum and dad fighting. I was like, oh, well, I don't know. It's like, I can't rely on these people. I don't know. It's, that's maybe I'm even like retroactively reasoning that now, but that's what happened. So, this friend, he was really trying to be in a gang kind of thing. And I was like, nah, I don't think we need that. We both got our parents. He's got both parents still together as well. And it's like, he's got a good life. So anyway, we fell out and he was quite angry that I didn't like want to do that with him. And so, yeah, like we had a big falling out fight until he like went to try to stab me, but someone else stopped him. So that was like very heavy day.
That was heavy when you tell me that.
Yeah.
I thought, wow.
Yeah, because I was like, we've been best friends for like 4 years. So I was like, I don't like, again, obviously he must have been going through something as himself, but yeah.
So you see, in my kind of understanding of people's stories, there are some major traumas you're talking about, of which you are a survivor, which you may never have seen it in those terms, but the picture I have of you from what you told me is that you've learned to stand on your own 2 feet from quite an early age.
Yeah, I suppose so. Because to be honest, when that happened, that was the second time I remember crying. Because the first time, I didn't really cry as a kid. Just wasn't one of those kind of kids. But when my mum and dad were splitting up on like the day of the event, like I remember we were going to my cousin's house, which they were renting from my mum and dad, and it was the whole thing. And then we were leaving. My dad was like, "Come on, boys, we're going home." And my mum was like, oh, no, you can't take the boys. And he's like, you're the one who's leaving. And it was like a whole, crazy situation. And my mum's cousin was like, everyone's trying to sort stuff out. And again, I remember standing outside and just found myself crying. And again, I was like 10. And I was standing for my brother. My dad was like, don't cry. But he didn't mean like, don't cry, as in like, because he cries. I think he just meant like, don't cry, it's okay. But I just translated to don't cry. So it didn't happen again for like 5 years. So, yeah. Hi, guys.
Thank you. It's very, very generous of you to share the story. But you see, I think when I hear stories like this, I get a sense of what drives people on. That survival instinct. You could have gone down the path your friends decided to choose. You could have been rich and powerful. Decided to go down that path. You've chosen something slightly different, and the way you came to being an illustrator, without the encouragement of that teacher, it sounds as though that was quite relevant.
Yeah, no, she was lovely.
She believed in you.
Yeah, she did email me still, like a while after, like, what are you doing? How are you getting on? And I was in Zambia, and I was like, oh, I'm just in Zambia with my family, so I'm just like, I don't know, I'll figure it out or something. I think I was just like exhausted. All I did was help my grandma. She was working still. She still works. Like, she's quite young, but I helped her around the house and just did stuff, and then just read. And I was like, and I kind of ignored everyone's messages as well. So I think I just again wanted away from like everyone. So I was quite lucky that happened.
Yeah.
Because my mom was like, all right, you're going to get a job. And I was like, yeah, you tried to get a job. And then but just wasn't getting one. But I think, no, I did have a job in Sheffield because I had cousins in Sheffield. So I had like a summer job in Sheffield, actually, tell a lie, yeah. So I did do that. So I wasn't like fully just a waste of space, but for the most part, just knackered.
But then you came to your illustrating, and you're living. When did you become financially self-sufficient?
Oh, I think quite luckily, even when I was in uni, I actually got my first job in uni. Wow. So like small commission stuff, and then I think basically in my second year, I met this guy named Alan Lazar. Sounds like fake vampire or something. But I was in a park sketching, and he walked past, and he was like walking his dog. He's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm just sketching." He's like, "Oh, you're an artist?" I was like, "I'm an illustrator," because I didn't know what an artist was. I was like, "I'm an illustrator." He's like, "Oh, do you do murals?" We were talking for a bit, but he ended up with, "Do you do murals?" I was like, never done my life. I was like, yeah, it's big drawings, isn't it? So he was like, oh, he basically commissioned me to do a thing on the back of his house. And I think because we spoke about it for a month and a bit, and I was planning it, it never went through because he had to like do something like remortgage or something. So, and you have to get permission from the council because it was on a like public facing area. Mm-hmm. And it was like, oh my God, I just had this commission, and I think it was going to be for like $6,000, which I don't know. Again, I was like 20 or 21, my first commission. I was like, that's like money. So I was like, oh, am I allowed to swear? I'll shoot. And has gone. But I think just that process dealing with him, even though it didn't go through, I think it was like a good energizer. Yeah. So when I met people, I was like, oh, I'm an illustrator. Yeah. That kind of thing.
Yeah. I think it's so incredible. I think that the good fortune, the little points that happen in life, aren't there? Yeah. That push you a little bit towards what you're meant to do.
I think he did buy a drawing for me in my final year, though, because we bumped into each other and he emailed me. So then he did. I was like, oh, sorry about that. We never made that. But I think he bought like a sketch or something. So Alan Lazar, wherever he is, he's got a uni grade drawing from me.
So then, just thinking about the creativity side of you that your parents didn't understand or want to encourage. Yeah. When do you think it really took hold? It sounds as though Tsar helped you on that journey as well. But when do you think it started to be real for you? Because when we talked about this before, you talked about the well-known thing called imposter syndrome. Mm. when did that kick in, and when did you manage to come out the other side of it, or was it still operating for you?
To be honest, it's weird because when I was in illustration, when I was an illustrator, I never felt imposter syndrome then at all. But only when I started painting, because again, I only started painting in 2021, so it's not very long. It's not very far. So it's only when I think so 2021 I did the other art fair, painted for that, and then in like early 22 when I did a solo show in Ham Yard in Piccadilly, and then I was like, I got paintings on the wall in Piccadilly. I don't really paint. I don't paint, but here we are. So it was then I was like, this is kind of crazy, but it's kind of still like that a little bit more and more, actually, weirdly, but not in a doubtful way. I'm a brother at the Art Workers Guild, and we had a thing called the Salon of Doubt, and we're talking about what our doubts are in our work. And I don't really doubt my work. I don't know, it's weird, but I'm like, even again, I've only just started saying artist without caveating it, because yeah, I think there's something about art that's kind of undecipherable or something, like we were just saying about your daughter and stuff. Like even the word creative, it's weird that I wouldn't. I'll call myself an artist more than a creative. I feel like an artist is, I don't know, it's maybe lower. It's still, I don't know. You're working out. I'm just working out. Whereas an illustrator, I know what I'm doing. There is objective. There's no objective with art in a way. Do you know what I mean? So.
Well, it depends, because some people would say there is, but I think when I spoke to you, I thought this is something that you recognize it's coming from deep within, and it's important.
Yeah.
But this doubt about, am I really an artist, or what is an artist? And what's fascinating about your story, to me anyway, is that in the AGBI, we're very particular about what is an artist. We don't help people if they're not a proper artist.
Yeah.
What is a proper artist? Anybody got ideas? We could ask everybody here. Let's stick with our story for a bit longer and open it up. But that question is, and again, different probably for everybody. But I think some people know that's what they're called to be. And you clearly wouldn't say that in those terms.
Yeah, I guess it's weird because I think like maybe I told you on the phone, but so when I was doing the illustration, and then when I was an illustrator, and I still am, but I guess when I'd get commissions, I'd always kind of fight with whoever commissioned me, which I just thought everyone did that. So I was like, oh, they tell me the brief. I'm like, oh, okay, I know what you really want. It's 30% of all that jargon. Then I'd be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And they'd be like, no, we want this thing. And I'd be like, no, but that's rubbish. And so I thought all illustrators kind of did that. And then I spoke to friends who were illustrators. They're like, no, we just do the work, Kay. And so I think when I started painting, I was like, oh, there's no one saying change that, do that. So I guess I kind of learned that was maybe more of my thing in that regard.
Sounds like progress to me.
Hey man, I'm not dead yet.
Now, when you look at your art, because it's quite interesting to look at, and I'm not a critic, and I haven't really got a way of kind of reacting that is discerning, but there's an awful lot going on in your pictures, and some of it is quite difficult to interpret if you're trying to make sense of a picture. But do you see a lot in your picture, or do you just see something that's come from within that had to come out, or is it a bit more of a story for you? I'm just interested in the process.
I think because of my illustration, I think my course was narrative and sequential, so it was about stories. So you learned storyboarding and like how to make a narrative and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of wanted to be an animator as well. But then I think the realization of drawing the same thing over and over again, slightly different, I was like, yeah, that's not happening either. So I think right in the beginning of the painting, they were very illustrational, where I'd always kind of have a plan. And I have like there's a thing called aphantasia where you can't really visualize. Well, I'm not an extreme. I do dream and daydream, but I'm maybe about halfway. So I can't picture anything in my mind's eye. It's kind of blank. Close your eyes, picture nothing. So I think, so even that, we're like, oh, did you see this? It's like, definitely not, because I don't have that kind of mental skill. But I constantly draw. And then again, with these ones specifically, it was like, all right, I don't really know where this is going really. So, let's just see what kind of happens. Except that one was the only one that was like kind of a snapshot in my head. And so when I painted that one, I was like, I got a flash of the image, but the other ones was just like, all right.
But the flash of the image comes and you're putting it on canvas.
Yeah.
But does it resonate in a physical, colourful shape, or is it an emotional reaction, or is it a combination of a lot of things?
It was emotional mainly, definitely, because again, these are all from like a breakup, so it was during sad boy moments. So that was like, if anyone's ever had like, heartbroken, sorry, it's an R&B song, but yeah, you're like, it's all gonna end. So that's how it felt. So, yeah, that's how it felt. But then again, like even while we're painting it, because it was very dark initially, and I was like, okay, like I'm not an unhopeful person, so that's kind of why I included the stars in all of them. I was like, because it was almost going to be just black backgrounds, but then I was like, no, like that's not. As much as I wanted to like be melancholic, as like I'm not there. So and I put the stars in there and stuff.
Lightened it up.
Something like that. I guess it's like, yeah, like you're gonna be okay, and I'm always okay. But I think like usually again prior to when I was younger, I was like I'm okay, ignoring that I'm not okay. Whereas like now, I guess I'm like allowing myself to like not be okay, and then in that quick acceptance, not fighting it, you're like, oh, it already feels a bit better, kind of thing, I suppose.
That's pretty good, because a lot of people I've looked after are not good at even hinting the fact they're not okay, because they just deny, shove it down, and
I get it,
and repress, and I don't get that feeling off you. Even though I think some artists, certainly some I've looked after, do repress, but something's coming out on the canvas that is really, really important.
I think I was talking to some friends. I think maybe, I think because I've always drawn, I always write notes every day, and I think like even my brother or someone who's not artistic, he doesn't write anything down ever, and I think I write benign stuff. Oh, someone looks nice on the train. I'll just write, oh, man looked interesting on the train or whatever, and I think like that little daily dose or whatever, I think that's probably as much as I'm personally worth. Like, if my best friend's not here, he was going to be, he would have told you, like, I'm like, weirdly, I'm like the coldest of our friends, which is weird, but also the one who's had the longest relationships as well. So there's obviously like, I think front facing, I can be very kind of, I can detach quite easily, but obviously at the same time, I'm the one who's stuck in a studio all day, putting his feelings somewhere. So I don't bloody know.
But to survive some of what you've been through in your life, you've got to have this ability to switch off. I don't think people can survive if they are totally unprotected.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, you're right.
Too much in the way of negative emotional trauma, and it's we've all got coping mechanisms. Yeah. And you sound like you've got more than a lot. I think people who have been through what you've been through wouldn't be as proactive as you sound with your life and your work, and this curiosity and fascination for different aspects of life. And just about today, there you are digging out somebody's basement and learning about building and wanting to do something new.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty impressed by that. What if just look at that picture? That's been bought already, and that was bought the first day of your
no,
show.
the other one was bought.
Oh, was it? Oh, that one.
Yeah,
That one down there. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Tell me what was going on for you in that one. Just out of interest,
So,
I've just got to remind myself what was going on when I looked at it, because there's a lot there. There's some sort of rather nasty beasts looking blue.
Yeah, I think again they're all kind of these ones are from after the breakup. That one's from just towards the end, and just when I'd a few months after I'd agreed to do the show, and I was like, oh, what am I going to, mental health? What am I going to do the work about? And I guess it was just that when you know something's not going well and you know it's going to end, and I guess it was like there's some dogs in there which are like kind of figments of my imagination. I was like, it's called Don't Bite the Hand That Needs You, and obviously my partner at the time, she was going through a lot, but she was kind of pushing me away. And it's like, it's like, again, that isn't the title. So it says like, why? It's a chef. I think, again, the fear of like engaging, I think I put a chef and a meal on the table, but the meal's being ignored kind of thing. And then you're just even being attacked as well as, even though you're trying to help. So I think there's something there.
I love it. A huge amount.
Yeah.
But it will speak to some people, and it clearly helps you process. Because what, in psychotherapeutic terms, what I know is there's some people who will process and other people who don't. My dad fought in the First World War, and most veterans of the First World War, even the Second World War, which we're all thinking about now, most people didn't talk about the trauma of the war. They just shut it right down. And
well, I don't talk about too much. Like nowadays, I do a bit more. Like even this, it's, I think because we've already done it and touched base a little bit, but I think I don't like talking about stuff immediately as well. I rather go through it alone for a while. Mm-hmm. I'm not, because once you talk about it, talking about it becomes an event in of itself. And you talk about having spoken about it. I don't like to do it personally about myself. I think also because most of my friends come to me about their problems first. So
you're a good listener.
So I'm like, you know what? I don't want to kind of do it. And I know it's not burden. I know it, but also I'm just like, I'll just go to the studio and sit and look at a wall for a while or something.
Well, that's a perfectly reasonable way of doing it. I don't think there's one perfect way. But what I do know is that if we don't recognize some of this stuff, it will get at us in other ways, in health terms or in relationship terms, like pushing people away when they actually see us as lovable. And we don't always want that. That's a not uncommon story, and you sound as though you've got a little bit of that going on.
Yeah, I did. I think I did have that, to be honest. I think I did have that. But then I've got like amazing friends, whatever. So yes. I try not to worry about certain things. I think also, given the stuff that happened when I was younger, I think if there was a time, probably until late 20s, if it wasn't extreme, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. This is not a worry. If it's not extreme, because I'm used to the extreme stuff that happened to me, I think when I was younger. So it's like, if it didn't kill me or close to kill me, I'm not losing sleep over this. And I think also when I was younger, I was probably like that with other people in a way. It's like, why are you worrying about this? This is not a problem, which obviously, again, everyone comes different with what they've been through. So I think
it's this survivor instinct that people have, and not to get bogged down with the negative, because you could otherwise just sink, and you're not a sinker.
So yeah,
I think. Now we could go on. I don't know how long we've got, but I mean, there's a lot to talk about here. But I think we've already touched on quite a lot of the important things. We could talk more about pictures. We could talk more about subconscious drivers. We could talk more about the therapeutic aspects of what you do. because they're all really interesting. But I wonder what you feel, because it'd be quite interesting to have other people's questions and include
Yeah.
your
Well,
piece.
hey, we're here now, so yeah, we can do that. We can open up to people.
Abby, does that feel?
Hello, yeah, go for it.
What are your favorite mediums to work
Um, I guess probably pen and paper, really and truly. It's like the reflex. Always have a pen, always have a sketchbook. Um, I'm still learning how to paint, so, but I like it though. But pen and paper, and also I want to. I was telling Michael, I want to get into making more things. So I was going to do a carpentry course because I want to make stuff. So, but pen and paper, I think. Yeah.
Is there like a special pen or a special type of paper?
One of my favorite pens is a Pentel brush pen. It's like a Japanese Pentel brush pen. It's fluid and yeah, I think probably that's one. I'm not very good at it with my right hand. With my left hand, I am though because I'm ambidextrous. But so but yeah.
Do you prime your canvases?
So sometimes I'll get like a clear primed canvas. Well, if it's like this linen, I'll get clear primed. And then if it's like like cotton canvas, then I will get it. It will be primed, but I don't use the prime side. So I rarely ever use the prime side. But even on these, I've used the reverse. So they're clear primed, and then just as I was about to paint them, I was like, oh, I'll use the prime side. But then I was like, I think I wanted a fight or something because.
Perhaps because there's got this sort of dryness of Francis Bacon.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because so I found out so when I first started painting, and again wasn't really. It's weird because I worked in an art shop for like a year, but I didn't really know about artwork in that way. And so when I started painting in 2021, I got a canvas primed because I was like, oh, let me just use that. I didn't like it, so I just flipped it because I didn't want to waste the money, and then I painted on that side. And then when I actually started like doing my personal art history, Francis Bacon did the same. He didn't want to waste money, so he flipped the canvas round, and then from there he kept using them. So I was like, yes, accident is the whatever. So yeah.
Question, because in your last question you said you like kind of brush pen on paper, and I imagine it's quite smooth paper.
Yeah.
And the painting is almost opposite.
Oh, 100%.
So dry looking.
Yeah. No,
and painting with in the way you do paint, it's a very different way of making a mark, isn't it?
yeah. Again, I think that so like with the drawing, I said because what's my favorite? I think I just went, what do I use the most? And I translate to favorite, whatever I use the most. But again, I'm enjoying the painting, and I think when I'm writing or drawing, I know exactly what's going to happen. Like, I know what's going to be the effect. Whereas I think when I'm painting, I like the surprise more and more. And when you're using the unprimed side of the canvas, it sucks. It absorbs a lot of paint, and so you're like, oh, this is what it will look like, and it doesn't. And then so
if it's not primed.
If it's
No, if it's not primed, it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it doesn't. It just soaks in.
Oh, it just soaks in. Yeah. But I didn't want it to be fully unprimed because I did try it once, and it just took too much. And I was like, I want it to sit somewhere. So, and I think yeah, something like that. Again, it's like, yeah, something like that. Yeah, thanks. Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that we learn here a bit about that kind of the mythological side. I think when I'm looking at your work, and you mentioned the fact that you don't always visualize as a very kind of intense metaphysical accord. It's like you can actually hear the sounds of the colors. It's like one fourth or fifth dimensionality about it. How do you interface with the material? When you look at this pigment, it just looks like it's so alive and it's actually taking us into the inner world, and it looks like it's even dancing is a bit alive. So I just want to know a bit about what you're trying to encode and your process of getting it on the canvas, because it's really transmitting to us in a very powerful way.
Thanks. Well, I guess you're just like I just said to this gentleman here, it's like I put something down and then you're like, that's not it. And you go again, you're like, that's actually worse. And then you go, you kind of, there's like a method, but then you don't want to use a method because you don't want it to be, I would like to surprise myself as well. As much as like, again, this one, I kind of had the image. Again, the image was very dark and almost just all black in my head. I only saw it once. Then I just sketched it really quickly, just had it. And then when I was coming to it again, when probably, it's weird because you kind of, you don't want to be conscious of it. You want to get in, that kind of flow state kind of thing. And I was like, no, I'm feeling dark and moody, but I'm just drawn to like getting the white paint and then mixing the white with something else and then, scraping it. And because, he was going to be the same color. And I was like, no. And then, so again, it's kind of the intuition element. You're just, does this feel right? Or, you get the idea of this and you go, no, I guess that's not working. And it's, without sounding all artsy fartsy, it's like, I think it can, when you're making, the thing you're making is telling you like, this ain't it. Go another way, mate.
You feel like you get like a sort of communality.
Something.
Material, because sometimes you feel like you're a conduit and you're getting that kind of, maybe because you're used to the palette or you're just figuring it out, or it's kind of more a sort of divine architecture of what you're creating. So I can just sort of see that. It looks very, just looks like where you use the white there and the composition. It has, I was actually doing some research today into the sort of metaphysical aspects of pigments, and I'm working with practice using edible pigments.
Okay.
Work from polluted community. I'm working a lot with Niger Delta.
Okay.
So I'm actually taking turmeric and doing tempera with that and hibiscus.
Interesting.
It's actually telling the story in the Torah.
Okay.
It's kind of like your inner world. Do you feel that is that you're actually in tune with that? Because I think you're bringing it forward, but maybe you're not aware of it.
I guess it's weird because there's, you're doing it and then you're kind of like tussling as you're making it, and then it gets to a point, you kind of feel yourself. I remember when I was only showing them to like a few people as and when, and they're like, oh, to everyone who's not me goes, oh, it looks done. I'm like, nah, it's not done. Like, oh, wait, I'm like 60%, and then you kind of know like the percentage, and like around like 90. I'm like, it's close, 90%. Then 95, I think there's like a window. It's never 100, but you kind of feel it. And then I think again, this one, it was like boom. And then when I got to it, I knew when it would be finished weirdly. Whereas like these two, again, I didn't know what was happening. I didn't even know if, I think it works. Now I don't even know if it works for real, but so I was like, this is as good as I can do, and maybe if I touch it, I'm going to ruin it. So maybe that must be that must be it. So I guess so. And also weirdly, because I'm in the studio alone, and then you go, don't think about it too much, but all you are doing is thinking about it. But then it's like, all right, let me just do it, and then yeah.
Would you like to explain? Because as I'm looking at that, it's like you're riding off the black bull or something. It looks like you killed your partner and then you've been slain in the heart. Like, what is it? What's going on? That's how I interpret it. But, and then you kind of realize, okay, this is enough. And it's kind of cathartic. So what is it brought from your psyche? Because obviously we've all sort of decoded it from our own lens. What?
Horror texture. Well, yeah, it's again.
And like a door behind a doorway of some sort, like a portal behind the door. What can you explain? What it means from your perspective?
Well, I think I've made in like other works. I always try to, well, not try to. I guess I just automatically have like recurring motifs and stuff. So I've used like a bull or like cattle as like as a spiritual guide almost, but there's no spiritual guide. I didn't feel like there was one, but the head's there on that one, on the bottom right hand side. So it came back, and again, it nearly didn't come back, but again, because that was the biggest one and the one I finished last, I was like, oh no, it's there. it's again, I was probably feeling more hopeful or something, so it came back, and it wasn't like black. It usually is white when I do the ball because it's almost like a guide, whereas here, it's a void. But I didn't want it to be pure black, so yeah, there is like my own mythology and kind of lexicon of stuff that gets used. Yeah.
And it's part of that from your sort of Zambian culture. Has that got a link with the cattle?
No, not particularly. I just don't know where. Like I used horses as freedom because they just, horses, they're old motorways or whatever. And then I think a cattle. I don't know why. I think it felt like one.
You feel very macho like that.
No, it wasn't like a Picasso kind of thing. No. Yeah, but yeah, so and then I guess that was, again, you kind of just feel the anguish. And I nearly didn't do it. Again, it's like these are just one stroke each. So I just like, I was like, do I do it? And then I'd see it over here, and then I was like, nope. Again, the waves of whatever, and I was like, and then I was like, damn, okay, all right. And then I was like, okay. Again, also because it's reverse side, you can't wipe anything off. So whereas with a prime side, mistakes can be brushed away. Whereas yeah, so it's done. It's done. Kind of like life.
That's why they can do because the skip outside was full of things that he threw away.
Yeah.
Couldn't change them.
Yeah.
It's kind of class.
Yeah, I'm into that challenge because then you go, all right, what are we gonna do now? Because there was a point where that was horrid, and I was like, and then you're like, Abby, this ain't gonna work. Get someone else. But then I pulled it back. I think that's nice.
Can I ask another question?
Ah.
Difficult one.
Okay.
Because of the conversation that's just happened
Yeah.
with Michael, do you think camouflage is important, like psychological camouflage in the narrative of your paintings?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, again, that's why when you're talking about the repression, I was like, yeah, I think that's why I use allegories and metaphors and stuff. And it's also, yeah, I will talk about stuff. Again, I do and I will, but this is probably the best way I know how to get it out. So there is, and then I don't want, again, this is probably the most I've spoken about me personally. It is tricky, and you don't, it's scary to go X, Y, Z. So, but these works are the most personal. So I guess I'm like kind of figuring out and learning to not be as, like, not no one care, like you care, but like I won't, I don't know. I'm just learning to be fine with it and put me in it.
I think clarity in the work of art can be quite boring.
That too.
And
Yeah.
I think the sort of struggle between wanting to express a feeling or an idea and the embarrassment in doing so can lead to camouflaging language, but actually the best art comes from camouflage language. It's so dense in its camouflage that the language itself, which is visual, not verbal, is really good usually.
Yeah. Well,
precisely because of the embarrassment.
Yeah. Well, I guess I have put my heart on the thing, but I think again with my illustrational side, I'm good at the details, and I like details in stuff. I think when I look at stuff and I get it immediately, I just walk off. So, as well as all the psychological and emotional stuff, I do want to have an arresting image, and again, not be bored by it myself. So, yeah.
They're really arresting paintings. Don't even think they're images.
Yeah.
They're sort of paintings,
I suppose so. Yeah, you might be right.
which is arresting.
Yeah.
It's like you can hear it, like is it called synesthesia when you can hear the colours?
Synesthesia. Yeah.
I can hear it, like when you've got resonance, and I think that's the kind of intensity of the pigment that is just really amplifies that resonance that it projects forward. And I like the fact that when a lot of us look at sort of symbolic iconography and looking at those cues, that they're not your cues, which is great. There's like a sort of sacred symbolism of what something means to us, doesn't mean because it's a bull, it has all this sort of connotation.
Yeah.
Could be the land fertility or masculinism or whatever. You're really kind of.
I guess that's what you want to do. You want to, again, it's, if you're going to make something and it's yours, and I guess, well, again, I'm saying that now. At the point, I just did it, and it is what it is. Yeah. Sorry, Maria, you had something. Sorry.
Yeah, I was saying, explaining some of the challenges we have taken this. Was that explain the names that you refer to them on your posts?
Yeah. Again, as Abby knows, I send you different iterations of it. This name, that name. Oh no. Again, because as like you were just saying about the, the like, what's the word you just used? Again, the mystery of them, whatever, camouflage. And so it's like, again, as an image, hopefully they are something. But then you kind of want people to get something from it, maybe a bit more concrete. So then in the titles, they're called the Argas, the series Argas, and Argas are basically omens. And so, but they're quite wordy. Then I was like, are they too wordy? And then, all this kind of stuff. But yeah, each title is also a bit mysterious as well. So it's not obvious. I know it, but so who knows? Who knows? Still hiding, kind of. still hiding. Yeah, thanks.
I actually have a question.
Yeah, finally, Jesus. More questions tonight.
I thought I'd done my work now. I can go.
Michael, you have worked with artists in your medical profession. Now in retirement, you're working and still working with artists, and you go above and beyond in your role to meet with artists that we support. So I was just wondering if there was anything in particular that really interests you about artists and the
Very good question. I'm fascinated by the people I've met through this charity because they are the most courageous people who are being true to themselves by producing work that is not only meaningful for them, which is perhaps the most important thing, but actually has some universal appeal that they can mostly hopefully sell. But it's what's going on behind the scenes and the lives that are led by a lot of the people I met through this organisation, this amazing charity, is people living in a very simplistic, sometimes very tough world. Their earnings are sometimes minimal. And when any health issue comes along, that is really bad news. And yet, whether it's pride or whether it's some extraordinary instinct to survive that pushes people on, which I think you've got a bit of, is operating. They find it difficult to ask for help, and yet they do. Some of them need encouragement, but they will come. I've had in my practice people who would come sometimes for the most what seemed like trivial complaints, but to them it was critical in their own mind because it was going to interfere with their ability to paint or to sculpt. And I had one patient who used to ring up before the day started. I used to get to work at 8:30. This guy had my private number because I don't know why, I treated him rather as an exception. And he had my wife's number as well. He would ring up. I need to see your husband. This was 6 a.m.
Please.
And he would turn up on the doorstep of my practice and looking like a tramp, actually. He dressed very kind of casually and usually covered in paint, so he looked like a mess. He looked like a painter and decorator working on something like that. And he would come in with the most strange complaints. I remember once, he was in real panic. He said, I feel like a tourist. I'd never heard of that complaint before. but he thought that was so serious that he had to see me urgently because he knew it was going to interfere with getting on with his day. And his day was about painting.
You can't paint if you're a tourist.
And it was my job to fix him.
You should have said, don't paint the luminal.
So I had some really weird times with my art expressions, but through the AGBI, my admiration is huge for what people will put up with and soldier on because of their art, and that's what they're there for, and they kind of know that. Got to do this. This is whatever it is, my way of earning a crust, or my way of being human, or my way of deserving a life. I mean, there's so many different reasons we haven't gone into all of it, but everybody has their drivers, and art is a very strong driver, is all I know, and keeps a lot of people going in a way that. Who wanted?
That's,
Yes, that's
right.
right.
Failed there. Yeah. Thanks.
That's right. That's absolutely right. I remember that story. That's,
His hatred of the Jews, because Jews were on like a lot of the. I mean, I'm Jewish also. I'm not like, but you know, because a lot of Jews sort of sat on like boards and positions because Jewish people for many years were like very early supporters and encouragers and benefactors of the arts. It was something that like it's such an interesting thing. It fueled that sort of deep sense of hatred in a very different way when you're frustrated at, in theory, let's say a gatekeeper in his experience, which I can't believe I'm humanizing, but it's like stopping him from doing something. But I think do it. Yeah. Has no anything, but I always wondered about that.
Okay, I'll ask a question. You said that you practiced a lot of complementary medicine.
Mm.
And I think when you look at artists, a lot of the ailments they might have might be more within their emotional system or their psyche, which is not really going to be treated correctly with allopathic medicine. So do you think that using whether it's sort of, I don't know, it's like remedies or homeopathy or different herbs that could alleviate the augmentative state better?
much better. The thing to remember about modern medicine is that most of it's unnecessary. In other words, most illnesses get better by themselves. But people, when they've got a tummy pain or even a skin rash or something more life-threatening, like bleeding when you pee, what goes on in somebody's head is much more serious. And I realized my job a lot of the time was to reassure. And then giving a homeopathic medicine or a Bach flower remedy was a far better way of doing something proactive than just saying you're going to be all right. Because just saying you're going to be all right doesn't work sometimes. You've got to take it seriously and come up with something. Now, with my psychological interests, I sometimes wanted to go down the psychological route. That wasn't always the right thing. Some people seriously do not want to go there, which is why you've been so amazing. Thank you for being so open and honest. But alternative medicine, because I did study homeopathy, and I was very keen on non-harmful treatments. So healing, cranial osteopathy. You know, there's so many ways into healing bodies.
I think we need to look at the sort of constitution of particular artists. I think of homeopathy. I mean, I write as well, and when I did this project, ghostwriting, a major book, I just found out, you might have seen on my Instagram, is being taught as a module at Birmingham University. I wasn't aware. That really, I would say, it took a pound of flesh. And when I went to my homeopath, I went to Dr. Sarah Eames.
I don't know.
Medicine. So I learned a lot through her being my consultant, and she said that was a not Swamica personality.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I looked it up, and it'd be more like a very alpha male. So it was like the stress of it all. So she said, "Don't take this," and then it really helps. I think sometimes looking at those characteristics, and I think also when we're looking at people who may have mental health diagnosis, who are very much open to this more sort of fifth dimensionality, very intense perception, or conduit to certain energies. It's important that you, I think, integrated approach is very important rather than maybe giving medical, giving them allopathic drugs that can really affect them.
Well, they have side effects,
Yeah.
you know, and that's the trouble with a lot of medicine. I mean, if you've got something serious, yeah, you've got to go and, if it's cancer, it's sometimes right to chop it out. But there's so many things that happen to the human body that don't need surgery or strong drugs. And protecting people from that felt like one of my missions was not to go down the allopathic heavy duty. Even though doctors are trained, first do no harm, actually we do quite a lot of harm. And that's,
having the alternative, the imbalance of the alternative.
Yeah.
Artists who are very sensitive and can be very reactive to stresses and other underlying conditions is not always a medical reason why they're feeling the way it might be the emotions or energy blockage.
Exactly. So yeah, no, it's and this has been, you know, again with Brad's help, getting to know some people come here, and he's been to their homes, seen what goes on in their life, has a picture which I don't necessarily have, although I've seen some people here in this office here, to get to know them, because it's so difficult to know how to help people because every story is different. Every health issue is different. You want to make sure you're not going to miss something serious in an awful doctor's hang up. And how to get it right is quite tricky. And you need time. The NHS doesn't give doctors time. Can't do it in 10 minutes.
Can I ask another question? A medical question.
Go for it.
Visual art is described as a kind of an aesthetic activity. Is bad art an aesthetic activity?
I'm not the right person to tell you the answer. I don't think I can agree with that. I think bad art can be a very good thing.
Well,
Yeah, but I may be wrong there. But I think, you know, it's in the eye of the beholder as well as in the eye of the artist. What's so interesting is if an artist is producing, I can think of a patient of mine that I got to know through the AGBI. I thought her art was absolutely horrendous. But she was a very damaged, sick soul. And it was important to her. It was really, really important to her.
well, this is getting into the question what is proper artist, isn't it?
Oh yeah, who was that? Oh, hello.
It's not really a question, but I think about that too sometimes, like the idea of, good and bad art, and I think sometimes in a strange way, just in my personal feeling about it, it's like better out than in. So it's like, even if it's, even if I don't like it, even if it, I don't know, sits on the floor of someone's studio and never does anything, it's sort of like it's conduit, it's like purposeful sometimes. There is some bad art that you see that, sells wildly and you just don't understand because you just think it's sort of junk, but I think that sort of hits at the core of what art is because it's so highly subjective. I don't know.
I was being a bit naughty in the question, but I've always thought.
And I can't believe I'm saying that because there's some art that I just, I would love to flush it, but
I just wonder, some people talk about art as if it has therapeutic value, like Matisse. And I've always wondered what bad art does to you. Good art makes you feel, heals you and makes you feel better. And if it's in the eye of the beholder and you think it's bad, does it make you worse medically?
what if you need to make bad art to make good art?
I'm talking about looking at it, not making it.
That's very subjective because everyone sees differently, as everyone feels differently. Therefore, like, there is no really a subject, or there is no a way of saying this.
That's what I mean. If you think it's bad.
Yeah, I know. And I think I get what you're saying because that's kind of like again, bring Bacon back. He was quite self-loathing, especially when he made bad art, and then he felt worse about it when he made it, and then he felt like then he'd go on these binges after making bad art. So, yeah. So shit, I'm terrible, and then go and whatever, and he's. Yeah, yeah, I suppose.
Because that most people would just look at it, come away from it, choose not to buy it. I think it's very different.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
If you've got a very dark compared to it, what some people might think, I don't want it in my house. You'll look at it energetically, or you do have that choice. I guess we're lucky to have
I guess also it's also timing though.
Creativity should be there for everyone. It's about the right and how we engage and we can look at it in a way, choose not to buy it or patronize the artist, but they should be able to produce.
Yeah.
Without limitations.
Yeah. Bernard Barlow talked about how important it was to make mistakes in the studio. And no one ever sees them, but to make mistakes is really you make.
I have a question for Michael, if I may. It's a really simple question, but I'd like to know how do you help somebody who's going through a really bad journey or really bad state of depression to navigate their self-expression? How do you actually help them, or what would be your advice to help those people, like artists or any other person? And I know it's such a broad.
When their depression blocks their ability to paint or create. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's one way. There's not one simple answer to that, is there? Because I think what so much of this is what happens in the relationship between the artist battling with their own internal struggles and the person then they're talking to in an open, honest way. And in that relationship, something can shift. It doesn't happen every time. And it is about personality. It's about connection, being heard, understood. And if that happens in a consultation, which I've had that experience where no question of doubt it happens, people go out, something's changed. And then, of course, for other people, if you're depressed, it's a much longer journey. And you've got to go through whatever you've got to go through. And some of that is finding the right person or the right treatment, whatever the treatment may be. And the treatment may be getting back to your canvas that you just got fed up with, it's all gone wrong, and persevering. But I deal a lot with people who hit rock bottoms in the addictive world, which I inhabit. People won't get well. They won't go to AA or give up booze or cocaine until they've really hit a crisis. They've got to really get into a life or death situation and then say, okay, perhaps I'm not handling the situation quite in the best way. So I was thinking alcohol was my friend. Alcohol made me feel better, or cocaine helped my creativity, or whatever it was. And actually, of course, that's a lie. But you've got to get to your rock bottom before you suddenly say, this is not working, and it may be me. It's not my parents, or the weather, or the government, or
All of the above.
I think it's about 7:13.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about using frames?
Yeah, it's something like, I don't hate frames, but I've only got I've only got maybe 4 things framed ever. I think that's frame is none of my business. I don't know. Yeah. Also, it's not. It doesn't. I don't. When I make, it's not like part of my schema of whatever. So, yeah.
If they're not framed, they've got more of a sculptural quality, more of a physical, concrete presence in the room.
Gotcha.
The frame around them, it's like through a window, so they're quite sculptural actually, in the sense that they're not.
Sometimes when I've seen my stuff framed, it does look good. I'm like, oh, that does look good. But again, that's it's none of my.
I'm just thinking again about camouflage.
Gotcha.
If you put a frame around them, it'd be more camouflage. I'm trying to suggest that the sculptural immediacy makes them
Something else, like hidden and more.
less camouflage.
Because they stick out more.
I mean,
They stick out more.
It's that battle between revelation and secrecy.
It's good, you've got that projection with the shadow as well. As you're looking. So depending on how you have it, it wouldn't be the same with the friend. It's like some artists would say that their friend is an extension of the work. So it's nice when you've got this as is and confident, like interpreting your own space.
Alright, well, I think we are still here until 8 o'clock, so you can still ask questions privately. I want to say huge thanks to Kay for being so early. Huge thanks to Michael for being here and contributing. I really hope that this conversation has spurred something on in your future.
Running away, that's what's happening.